today. First of all, just a quick correction. I'm from Jerusalem, which was named just recently by Time magazine as the most promising up-and-coming startup center. Everyone thinks of Tel Aviv, Herzliya. Start thinking about Jerusalem. If you take a look at what we're doing, we're involved in the equity crowdfunding business. Crowdfunding has become hugely important. Lots of issues in the debt part of it, certainly since the recent troubles that Lending Club has had. Lots of, still, I would say, amazement about the reward-based crowdfunding of Kickstarter and Indiegogo, where you get to essentially send money to bad singers who never should have recorded anything anyway, but yet billions of dollars flow. And then, of course, the donation, which is reshaping the face of philanthropy. Equity is the new kid on the block. And it's interesting. If you look at what Goldman Sachs says, they say that in the next 10 years, equity crowdfunding and the venture capital angel part of this equation will be about a $60 billion market. All I can tell you is that we're growing very, very fast. And there are two emerging models that are coming forward relative to equity crowdfunding. One is I think the kind of model which is mostly in use here in the UK, and that's what I would call the junior IPO model, which basically says, look, regulation is too heavy for startups. You want to get them sort of public, make it easy, a guy, a gal, and a dog. Let individuals invest without having to go through the hassle of a formal IPO. But the way that's structured is that you as individuals now are essentially issued stock in this little tiny startup. The startup has to manage this whole process. They are able to take typically a placement fee. Usually they take it from the company itself, and then you are on along for the ride. But the work of the portal, as it were, stops at the moment that you've been issued your shares. The company goes off and hopefully sails into the sunset. But the other model, which we're a proponent of, which is the VC model, says, wait a minute. First of all, the wisdom of the crowd has its limitations. It's not necessarily the best idea to make a decision on investing real money based on a 30-second video and 200 words on a crowdfunding site. Let's, first of all, curate the whole process. Put in a negative word, if you will, in the lexicon of crowdfunding, which is a gatekeeper. And so, for example, we actually curate intensely all the deals that go up on our site, and we actually only place 2% of them. 98% are rejected. And then the other thing we do is we don't take everybody. We're limited to what are called accredited investors in the US or sophisticated and qualified investors, depending upon where you originate from. Our minimum investment is $10,000, so this is clearly not for everybody. This is a high-end kind of thing. And then we aggregate everybody who's investing into a single entity, into an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, so that we can write one check for the company. The reason we do that is twofold. On the company side, that gives us, first of all, clout, so we're buying the same paper that venture capitalists buy, and we're almost always co-investing alongside the VCs and the well-known angels. And number two, we get a board seat, and we focus on not getting the money to the company, but what happens with that company the day after. But also, you're now benefiting the company because you're not messing up their cap table. When a little company gets 100 or 200 or 1,000, God forbid, individual investors have all been issued shares, not only do you have to manage these guys, and they have no experience doing so, but most VCs run away in horror when faced with a company with this kind of what we call the sloppy cap table. So we're real proponents. It's probably a minority view right now. We're bigger than any other crowdfunding platform in the world in terms of dollars that have been invested through our platform, but we're doing it in a very different way, more like a hybrid VC crowdfunding operation. If you look at this on a scale of diligence and management, we're very, very insistent on both of them. We take diligence seriously, and we take the post-investment management seriously. And what's driving crowdfunding for equity in general is this realization, which is, I think, permeated most smart money in the world, which is that all the returns are now private. That the good old days when you could have invested in an Apple computer or Microsoft at IPO and taken hundreds of times your money, with Microsoft 600 times your money from IPO to today, with Oracle 700 times your money, that doesn't exist anymore. First of all, most of the IPOs are down. post-IPO performance. But more importantly, the best you get, like take a great company, Facebook, 3x, 4x on the IPO, so that 10x or 100x is no longer available. You can get it, but you've got to go private. And so this is driving everybody, family offices, hedge funds, private equity funds, they're all coming into the venture asset class because they don't want to necessarily even buy Uber at $64 billion as a private company. They want to get in much earlier. So if you look at who we're competing with a host of companies both in this country and mostly in Silicon Valley. We like to think we're leading the pack, although we're sort of a little bit from, call it right field or left field, depending upon your orientation in the world. And what we propose is essentially a blend of venture capital and angel investing. On the one hand, maintaining venture capital best practice in terms of diligence, handling all the legal, making sure that the thing is well managed in particular after writing the check, but giving the actual investor the freedom to be an angel, to cherry pick their own deals, to not make big commitments. I mean, most good venture funds you want to get into, get ready to write $1 million check. Even if you're rather wealthy, that may or may not be the right thing to do with your asset allocation. So if you look at how we look at ourselves, we basically research thousands of companies every year. We hope to think that, like to think that we select the best. We then invest our own money, and this is a big differentiator. Literally in every single deal that we put up, before we go to you, we have chutzpah in Israel. We don't have enough chutzpah to ask you for money if we're not putting our own money first. And then finally, we open the deal to the crowd and let people come in. So at the moment on OurCrowd, there are three ways to invest. One is the classic sort of pick your own company, cherry pick and put from $10,000 on up. We have people who actually put millions of dollars in a single deal. We've built something called the Portfolio Reserve, which looks like a fund in that it starts at $100,000 and you're able to invest in 10 different companies and you're reserved a piece of the next 10 deals. You don't have to fight the crowd for your allocation, but you actually get an opt-out button. So if you see that we're doing something, and we've done, for example, a medical cannabis delivery platform, and you're horrified by cannabis, you don't have to do it. Okay, we've done a gun safety company called Clipfort, which I think will save lots of lives, but if you don't want to touch guns at all, you don't have to do it. So you just opt yourself out. And then finally, we have funds, which are small funds which we're raising on the site. In terms of our stats, about $230 million so far raised for our companies, 13,000 accredited investors from about 110 countries, number 10 on the KPMG top 100 fintech disruptors, about 96 portfolio companies. Our biggest raise was about $15 million. That's another thing which you have to get used to with us is that we're not talking about small couple $100,000 checks. We're talking about average raises of $2 to $3 million and big raises that can be 10 million or more. And then exits. And I know that this is actually a sore subject here in the UK in terms of the community. There was an article just yesterday in the Times that highlighted our exits, and we've had 9 exits to date. We've got a great leadership team, people who come from the venture capital and from the entrepreneurial community. And in terms of fees, our fees are pretty standard for the venture world, but with some differences. We're 2 and 20. But we limit the 2 to 4 years. We take a 2% management fee for 4 years. We take it up front, and then we take a 4% admin fee. So there's a total fee load of 12%. What's interesting is that if we exit a company within that 4-year period of time, we return you unused fees. So there's a company called Replay in our portfolio, which was bought, according to the press, we haven't announced the number ourselves, for $175 million by Intel. It took 3 months after we invested. So the investors get back 3 years of unused management fees. That's sort of unusual. And I haven't seen many cases where venture capitalists are returning management fees. We do take a 20% upside on the money raised, and if we get over, on the money returned, and if we get over a 5x return, we're taking 25%. So we don't take anything on placement, right? We take management fees and we take administrative fees because this SPV we set up, which aggregates everybody into a single unit, is set up offshore, and that costs a little money. So again, we mentioned that we were very proud to be on this list of great companies, some of them here actually on that FinTech 100 list. And we've got a great portfolio. And what's interesting about our size is you're starting to see critical mass in silos in the portfolio. So you see a cohort of 7 cyber companies and a bunch of advertising and marketing tech companies and a whole big cohort of medical companies. And our portfolio is getting a lot of recognition. The World Economic Forum named of their top 49 companies in the world, 2 were a crowdfunding platform. And I think this puts the lie to a terrible canard, which has often been sort of thrown at crowdfunders, which is, sure, okay, you can raise money in this weird way, but you're not going to get the best deals, right? You're going to have the seconds, the leftovers, right? The good companies are going to the venture capital, and we feel exactly the opposite. We feel that we are able to offer our entrepreneurs who we back a real value add, because we don't just have the network of the 4 partners who are sitting in a dark room on Monday afternoon, either in Menlo Park or here in London. We have the network of our 13,000 investors, and we add tremendous value to our companies, and so we're getting a real lot of very, very good companies. This is the article from yesterday's Times. One of our companies, Rewalk, was one of the best performing IPOs on NASDAQ in 2014, and we had 200 crowdfunders who were participating in 2 rounds of funding before that went public. And this is a list of the various exits. You can see companies that were bought by either Intel, Oracle, Rakuten from Japan, IPOs in the US, IPOs in Singapore, and a whole bunch of others. We have a lot of impact investments. We're very focused on things that are going to make money and do good at the same time. No sacrificing profits by us, but on the other hand, when you get an impact deal up on the site, it resonates more with the crowd and it inspires people to act. So companies like Rewalk, companies like Psyche, which is the medical cannabis delivery, Zebra, which was named the top startup of the year last year in Israel, which is doing deep learning for radiological image analysis, Site Diagnostics, where we're co-invested with Eric Schmidt, which is a complete game changer in malaria testing, MetaWare, which is going to prevent your doctor from killing you, God forbid, with a bad prescription, Up and Ride, which is from the founder of Rewalk, where they're taking essentially a wheelchair and turning it into a Segway, Surgical Theater, which is allowing a neurosurgeon to slap on an Oculus and go for a fantastic voyage in your brain before you get neurosurgery, God forbid. BT9, which is managing the cold chain. CropX, we're co-invested again with Eric Schmidt in Innovation Endeavors, which is revolutionizing irrigation management. SoBuy, which is a new platform for social bicycles. Eden Shield, which is an organic pesticide. Enverid, which is going to save you 30 or 40% on your big building air conditioning expenses and give you better air quality than ever before. VocalZoom, which will essentially give you 100% speech recognition pickup using optical technology developed in Israeli intelligence, where you read vibrations from the windows, and on and on and on. Argus, which is in the anti-hacking for cars, and Hill, which is building proton beam therapy, Tyrannus, which is doing micro weather predictions, Sweech, which is pre-diabetes, Global Kinetics, measuring Parkinson's, tremor, and then feeding it back into your meds. And what you'll see here in common with this portfolio is that we're very focused on technology. This is not about consumer plays or breweries or pubs and food. People make plenty of money in that area. That's not what we're good at. You know, we drink a lot of beer. Actually, I just read something that Israelis drink only 1/10 the beer annually that Europeans do. We've got to improve our beer consumption. Be happier. What we are good at in our part of the world is technology. And by the way, right now, about 70% of our deal flow is in Israel. About 30% is outside, mostly in Silicon Valley. And in the States, we've done a couple of deals in Australia, 1 deal here in the UK. We're looking for more, so anyone who has business plans would like to share them with us and go on our platform. We'll be opening up an office here in London in the not too distant future. So we're very excited about investing in multiple stages of companies, from seed all the way to Series E. We don't do public, we don't do pipes, but we do everything from the earliest stage all the way to later stage. And we're proud of our companies. We think that the story really, in any crowdfunding platform, is really about what kind of companies and what kind of results, because you can talk about the democratization and how cool this is, we're all going to get into the asset class, but let's face it, if we're not making money here, this is not going to work. This is going to be an experiment, very, very short-lived. And our attitude on how to make money in this asset class is to treat it professionally, to do the diligence, to do the hard work, to focus on what you do to help the company grow after you've deployed your money, and then provide market or better than market returns for the asset class to your investors. Thank you very much for having us, and glad to be here.
So Jonathan, explain how you do the due diligence. Do you do it in a similar way to a standard VC firm? Do you have a mechanism?
So we do that and more, and we use the power of the crowd. The beautiful thing about having 13,000 LPs is that you end up having silos of 20 cardiologists and 30 radiologists who are actually writing checks for other companies, and now they give you a broader panel, if you will, for diligence. And we actually not only use the crowd for diligence, but we use the crowd for deal sourcing. We just did a deal in India called Zoomcar, which is the most magnificent rental car company, all technology driven. We followed Sequoia, now Ford is doing around there, and this was sourced by one of our investors from India.
But if you rely on the crowd, there's a lot of noise there. How do you filter for quality?
So we have 20 people. We're over 100 people in our startup now. We've raised a lot of money for the platform. And we do very, very intense triage where we take 80% of what we look at, and we make mistakes, by the way. We send it away. 20% we start digging in more deeply. We'll invite typically 10 or 15% in to meet us, and then we start the process.
So when Sequoia invests, or when an Israeli fund like Aleph invests, that's a signal that they're known for quality investments. It's a branding exercise often for a lot of the startups that want to get funded by them. You don't have that advantage.
I beg to differ. I think that when you look at who we've co-invested with, we've co-invested not just with Sequoia, but with Andreessen Horowitz and Bessemer and Battery, done 5 deals with Vinod Khosla and 4 deals with Li Ka-shing out of, we're just not well known. We haven't gotten the branding, if you will, in the venture community. And a lot of people basically think, well, crowdfunding, that sort of smells, right? In other words, there has to be something wrong with the company to do crowdfunding. But those who actually know us and seen our work, the entrepreneurs who work with us, are starting to send us all kinds of, and when they realize that we're the guys behind consumer physics, which is the new spectrometer that you can scan everything, or we're the guys behind Zebra, or we're the guys behind Rewalk, or we're the guys behind a whole host of winning companies, I hope that our brand will also bespeak the same kind of seriousness.
Last question. We have been in a rising tech market.
Thank God.
That may not continue. How is the crowd, do you think, going to respond when the value of their investments go down as well as up?
They'll be upset, okay, except that what's interesting, actually, in the last couple of months and quarters, we've noticed a definite slowdown in Europe, in Asia, and in the US. There's only one venture market in the world which is still robust and growing, and that's Israel. First half of this year is up, it looks like 15 to 20%. The figures aren't in for June yet, but 15 to 20% year on year. And this is after a 100% increase in venture dollars invested over the last 2 years. So Israel's very robust. And I think that if you look properly in terms of the frame of reference, which is not this quarter or next quarter, but you look at the next 5 years or 10 years, tech is going to be unreal. I mean, when you look at what's coming now, not just here in the wired money arena and in fintech, but if you look what's going on with the Internet of Things, with big data, with deep learning, with robotics and medical devices and digital health, we are on the verge of an explosion, in my opinion, in the tech market, where valuations, thank God, have come down on some of these crazy unicorns, but the overall trend line is up and to the right big time. So I think that it's a good time to be bringing the crowd in. The crowd has to do it seriously. They can't just pick 1 or 2 companies. They have to build portfolios and get the diversification that a serious investor does. But if they choose their portal right, and we're not the only ones, there are other guys who are doing good things in the crowdfunding area, I think that they can make returns, and I think this is going to bring a really lot of new capital in and an important sort of 4th pillar on top of venture, angel, and corporate investing into innovation finance.
Thank you from Israel, Jonathan Medved of OurCrowd.
Thank you.